Our next speaker is Mr. Haipei Shue, and he's the president of United Chinese Americans, and he's come all the way from Washington, D.C. And Haipei has been working tirelessly over decades for the Chinese community, and he has been the leader, taking a leadership role in helping to pass the Congressional Chinese Student Protection Bill in 1992, and he is instrumental in the passage of Congressional Policy Resolution on the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882. So today, Haipei is going to share with us his thought on the civic engagement and where we are and what we can learn. Welcome, Haipei.
Hey, friends here. This is my third time come back ever since 2 years ago. The whole journey started in remembering Joy's home, and Dr. Liang and quite a few others are here. It's quite a tough job to do the last talk, given so many wonderful speakers all over. And I do agree that if you don't have a cardiac event, better have in Minnesota. I would say that if you're going to have a civic engagement talk, and it should be here too. Kind of trying to brag a little bit about this. I really think that if anywhere the Chinese American community can say it, we made it, I think it is in Minnesota, in this very city. Can't believe the wonderful array of professionals, professors, doctors, managers, just unbelievable achievement here. Just quickly, I want to say that, and also thank you for Beijing University Alumni Association here, CAAM, and the CLF's indispensable role in making this happen. The UCA United Chinese American, we actually started just last year. But our first event is having a first of its kind an open platform Chinese American convention last December in Washington, D.C. It's attended by over 400 people, about 450 people. We intend to do that in the future every year in different cities. Trying to get the community activists, scholars, elected officials, youth, all come together to talk and share and shape a common agenda for our community to move forward. So that's one thing, but second thing, I couldn't be more feel blessed that we are starting on this second trip of our journey, which is doing in different cities, Civic Leadership Forum. Because this is really what we think our community needs most. You will hear what I say, why I think so. Well, in general, the public perception is the Chinese American community or Asian American community. By the way, I just very thankful for the many Hmong people and elected officials, they're represented here. I also see some from Vietnamese community. This is a good gathering of Asian American community. We are living, in a general sense, a kind of a model minority halo. Everywhere you go, it looks like the Chinese community are very successful in many social and socioeconomic indexes. But somehow, we just feel there's something missing, something amiss, some sense of not totally integrated or enjoy the full-fledged American life. And the problem in that public perception is that you or we or our children lack communication skills. We're not leadership material. We do not have a very expressive and open personality, dynamic personality. And there's also the perception that the Chinese Americans are not very much into the community, living on margin, not that much reached out to other communities. And I would say that some of this perception are true. Although there's also innate bias and sometimes discrimination from time to time. But what caused this, my personal diagnosis is exactly, surprise, surprise. I think it is primarily our lack of civic engagement. Of course, if you from China, you know that we have a long history that does not encourage any citizenship, does not encourage any political and civic engagement. That's not only in imperial China, but in China even up to this day. So there is a good excuse for us. But I think having lived here long enough, we should overcome that. To exaggerate a little bit, we kind of given up our public and civic life. Now, if you live an immigrant life, or even if you are a second or third generation here in America, what kind of a civic and a public or even political life are you living? Or even your parents has brought to your life? I'm including even like dinner table conversations. These are very much lacking in our life, and not much, right? We don't have much of these so-called civic and public and or political life in our life, and that hurt us deeply. Think about this. I have a little metaphor. If you can divide people's life into two parts, a family or private life versus a public or civic community life, we have been taking care of our private or family life quite okay. We're doing very well with our kids, our own families, on personal achievements, but we kind of almost giving up the other half. And what kind of American life is that? You have it. You even give out half of the fun in the public life too, in your life. So that to me is my little diagnosis. The impact of that, we all feel that. You know, you feel like your job opportunity, your chance of a promotion, and that including your kids' chance maybe getting into good universities, their chance of a job and their promotion are all, at least you feel, impacted negatively by that. If you don't believe that, I want to give you a little story. Compare the Chinese American with the Indian Americans in this country. Chinese American came here about 1850. Indian American comes here primarily after 1965. And we are 1 million more people than Indian Americans. And if you today, either in the East Coast, Wall Street, or go to the West Coast, Silicon Valley, the Indian Americans are 4 to 5 times more represented in senior leadership positions. And you may all know that Google and Microsoft CEO are not Indians. But you may not know that in the corporate board, in the same two corporate board, there are many more Indians there in the corporate board. And if you go to Silicon Valley, you look at those companies at the mid-level management, there are even more Indian Americans. So it's not Chinese coming, the Indians are coming. Yeah. And even in the US Congress, this past election, we got 3 Indian American members of Congress for the first time, surpassed the number of Chinese American. So we have 4 members of US Congress who are Chinese descent, but there are 5 Indian Americans, and I look down the alley, I see even more Indian Americans to come up in the coming years. The one thing is that we all know there's a very well-known Indian school called IIT, what is the Indian Institute of Technology or something? That's Indian's MIT. You have, we have a Tsinghua, nothing to put Tsinghua on corner. But let's say all the Chinese engineers coming from China, right? Do you know how many Indians these days sit on a corporate board on the major social institutions like a law school, medical school, business school? I would say it's, from that school alone, it's countless. You can't even count how many CEOs, CFOs, CTOs, and board members, things. 6 of the top 10 business schools are run by Indian Americans. The Chinese American, we are way behind on that. I'm just trying to give you a little things on this, and just to say that this is primarily, I think, again, it's not because Indians have better English speaking capacity. It is our lack of civic engagement from day one in our own family. I think that's the primary reason. You wouldn't think, and you wouldn't agree, that these Chinese or Indian Americans, white or Jewish boss, prefer or like Indian more than Chinese. I don't think anybody agree with that, right? So give you a chance to look inward, rather than always point out outward to find reasons or excuses like a discrimination of this nature. I do think there are, but they're not that important. So what can we do? I guess the answer is more civic engagement. The Chinese medicine advocate that 缺少补啥 or 缺少吃啥, meaning that whatever your body needs, you just eat them more. That's the philosophy of Chinese medicine. I would say that's applied to this case too. You know, there's so many things you can do, especially educate your kids, bring something on the dinner table for conversation. Your Minnesota NPR is pretty good on a lot of things. We listen to that. You know, PTA, neighborhood committees, school board, civic organizations, politics. You enjoy some politics, public policy debate. You name it. The list is very long, but we never tried that. 170 years ago, our forefathers came to this country to try to get rich, to mine the gold. But they're not that successful. I think that 170 years later today, we have another chance to climb and mine the gold mountains. You know, we come for the gold mountains. And I think this time the gold mountain is not of gold. The gold mountain is the gold mountain of public service, civic engagement, volunteerism. There's a huge potential for our community to climb that gold mountain. And if we do it, if we persist in doing that and doing it smartly, I think we're going to hit the mother lode pretty soon. I'd like to end by sharing one of my favorite stories I have read, and that is back to almost 150 years ago when the Transcontinental Railroad was just being started. Back in 1862, when they started this from the Sacramento towards east, the Central Pacific Railroad, that's the company doing that, they tried to find enough people to work, but they just couldn't find enough people. They run out of Irish boys too. Charles Crocker, one of the big guys who actually, run the company, had a board meeting saying that I heard that people saying that there's some Chinese who are pretty good at working. And all of a sudden the whole board is against him. Oh, a lot of reasons, this is railroad business, is high tech, it's not farming, Chinese can't do it. They are on average weight 120 pounds, they can't work with the Irish and in no way. all of this reason they have given. Eventually, Charles Cracker, according to the legend, got a little bit impatient and pissed. So he stood up and saying to the board, didn't they build the Great Wall in China? And we know the rest of the story. So if our forefathers 170 years ago can come here and build that great transcontinental continental railroad in those harsh conditions, what is going to stop us today from building our community and building a better country? Thank you.